Well, I just arrived at Harrison and Locust for another morning of crosswalking and sign evangelism. Hoping that someone will stop to talk or to stop for a gospel tract or a free Bible. Hoping to see the Lord work again this morning. I thought what we would talk about today is how to handle hecklers. Now, in the 12 years that I've been doing crosswalking, and I've engaged in crosswalking throughout the United States, on street corners, outside of abortuaries, on college and university campuses, at parades, outside of police stations, and in other places. And I can say, based on my experience, that of those who drive by or walk by, who respond in some way, either verbally or non-verbally, the responses are by and large positive. Most of the people who wave all 5 of their fingers and not just the middle one. Most people who shout something will shout something like, "God bless you," or "Have a good day." But there are those, and I run into them every day when I'm out, there are those who are going to flip me off, or they're going to say something like, "Hail Satan," or "Jesus doesn't exist," or some other things that I can't repeat on video. So what I'd like to do in a few minutes during this video is to talk about how to respond to hecklers. And you might be surprised at what my most common response is. Well, it was another wet but productive morning of crosswalking and sign evangelism at Harrison and Locust. As you could see from the highlight reel, I had contact with several people this morning. One man who I've seen several times there at the corner, who always refuses to take a gospel tract, but is somewhat friendly. He walks up to me today and he says, "That cross is for a short person." And what he was doing was mocking what the cross was for. And you could see in the video him holding his arms out as if he were too big to be crucified on that cross. A heckler. But a couple of other people received gospel tracts. A few, in fact, received gospel tracts. One of my favorite bus drivers, when I say my bus drivers, I'm referring to the bus drivers in my city. I've established a good rapport with several of the bus drivers because they see me not only almost every day, but multiple times a day as they're driving the routes. Well, one young lady by the name of Angela, if she comes up to the light and it's a red light and I'm there, she will often open up her doors and just have a brief chat with me before the light turns green. And that was the case today. I asked her how I could pray for her today, and she said, just kind of rolled her eyes and she said, "Just pray." So I did. And then a lady came up for a couple of Bibles, pulled into the gas station parking lot behind me, and asked if she could have a Bible. I said, "How many would you like?" She said, "Can I have 2?" And so I got her 2 Bibles, and as I handed them to her, she stayed in her car, and as I handed them to her through the driver's window, she apologized to me. And she said, I'm so sorry, I drove by and I missed the turn, and so I had to drive all the way around the block so I could come back to ask for Bibles. She was apologizing to me for missing the turn. So she got 2 Bibles. So it was a wonderful morning. In spite of the weather, my heart was warmed because God was working there on the corner of Harrison and Locust. So having spent the morning fishing for men, and now that the rain has stopped, since my time is going to be pretty limited here over the next few days, I'm stealing away for a couple of hours before dinner to go fishing for fish. So I thought while I'm making the drive up to the lake, we'd continue our conversation regarding how to handle hecklers. And I mentioned in the introduction that you might be surprised as to what my most common answer to hecklers is. And it's this. You ready? Yep. I don't say anything at all. I have found over the years of crosswalking that it is best to limit my response to hecklers who are driving by. And the reason for limiting my responses is because I'm taking into account the other people who are in the area, the other motorists at the intersection, maybe a pedestrian on an opposite corner. All they're going to hear of that conversation with the heckler is what I'm saying. They're likely not going to hear what the heckler had to say. And so without the context of a full conversation, I could shout something to the heckler that might be entirely appropriate, but with no context may sound completely inappropriate, or might sound angry or rude or offensive to someone who just happens to be driving by. It could also appear to some driving through the intersection or stopped at the intersection that I'm simply yelling at myself. that I am in fact a crazy man with a cross who's out there on the street yelling at himself. So because of the lack of context for those who are in the area, I will often limit my responses to hecklers on the streets. I've also found by saying less, responding less to hecklers when I'm out crosswalking, also limits the opportunity for me to say the wrong thing. It limits the opportunity for me to respond in kind, or to revile when reviled, or to be overly sarcastic, or to say the first thing that comes to mind, which in the heat of the moment, as a car's driving by at 30 or 40 miles an hour, might not be the best thing to say. And so for all of those reasons, and maybe others, I don't respond much to hecklers. When I do respond, I make sure to try to choose my words carefully and to keep my statement short. One of the reasons for that is I'm calling out to a driver in a moving vehicle. If the reason for my response is for the person who heckled me driving by to hear it, well, I have a very limited amount of time to accomplish that. Remember, reaction time is 0.75 seconds in order to perceive something, and another 0.75 seconds in order to respond. And so there is a second and a half that goes by as the car is moving past me at speeds varying from 25 to 50 miles an hour or higher. There is a second and a half delay before I'm even going to get anything out of my mouth, if I get it out that quickly. And by then, the car is several yards away. And so I've got to keep it short. I've got to keep it succinct. Again, one of the reasons why I have the amplifier out there with me is so that when I call out to a heckler, I don't sound angry. I'm not yelling or screaming. People aren't driving by seeing my veins popping out of my neck because I'm bellowing it out at full open air voice to make sure the person can hear me. That's one of the reasons why I have the amplifier out there. So I'm going to share with you in a sanitized way some of the things people will shout at me, and it's not a really long list. Unbelievers play off the same playbook. I'm going to share with you some of the things that people say, and then I'm going to share with you how I respond to those heckles. Well, I just stopped to pick up some night crawlers. All right, focus. All right, so here are some of the things I hear out on the streets by way of heckling while I'm crosswalking. Hail Satan. Jesus doesn't exist. Let's see, what else? A very disgusting word followed by you. And things like that. I remember I mentioned that it was a short list. Oftentimes the hecklers are yelling something out for effect, whether they even necessarily believe what they're saying or not. They're saying it ultimately because they hate God, and they hate whoever represents Jesus Christ. They don't know me from Adam, basically. They're driving past the intersection, they see a guy standing there with a cross, and out of the abundance of their heart, their mouth speaks. So when someone says F you, the only response I might give is, stop and talk. Come back and talk to me. That would be it. When someone hollers, hail Satan, or I worship the devil, or something like that, I refer back in my mind to John chapter 8. What did Jesus say to the Pharisees when they denied that he was the Christ? When they denied that he was who he said he was? What did he say? He said, "You are of your father, the devil. You are of your father, the devil." And so when someone shouts, "Hail Satan," or "I worship Satan," or "I worship the devil," or something like that, I simply respond with, "He is your father. He is your father." And my hope is that will strike a nerve. Ultimately, what I want them to do is turn around and come back. I want them to turn around and come back. I want them to talk. Stop and talk to me. But if they're not going to do that, then I want God's judgment rattling around in their head. I want them to lay their head on their pillow thinking, I am of my father, the devil. That's what I want them thinking. Jesus doesn't exist. At times I've made the mistake of responding, just saying the first thing that comes to mind, because I just have to say something. I'm certainly not perfect out there. I'll say something like, "You don't exist." Well, friends, that's just stupid. That's just dumb. And so when people shout something like that, Jesus doesn't exist, I might say Jesus is Lord, or I might not say anything at all. All right, I'm going to go throw a line in the water for a little bit, and I'll be back to finish this up here shortly. So for years, I would use the word coward toward hecklers while crosswalking. I have stopped doing that. And there are a few reasons for that. One, it brings out the anger in me. And as I've testified publicly before, I used to be an angry street evangelist. But I'm not anymore. And when I shout the word coward, I am in a very real way picking a fight with whoever it is that I'm talking to. I would say things like, don't be a coward, come back and talk to me. No coward will enter into the kingdom of heaven. All cowards will have their part in the lake of fire. And so I would try to dress up the word with theology and with scripture, but I was simply calling people names. And I shouldn't do that. Another reason is people driving by, they hear me shout coward, or they hear me shout don't be a coward, and they could be wondering if I'm talking to them, while I'm directing that remark toward a heckler who just did a drive-by. Other people driving by could snap their neck back thinking, did he just call me a coward? When I wasn't even referring to them. Another reason is other people at the intersection or driving by, again, they don't have the context. They likely didn't hear or see what the heckler said or did. And now I do look like the crazy guy on the street corner, shouting coward into the wind, angrily shouting on the street corner, talking to no one at all. And that's not a good representation of Christ or the gospel. So I don't use the word coward anymore. And if you're accustomed to using that word, and maybe you're accustomed to using it because you've watched a bunch of my old videos and you've heard me use it, let me encourage you to stop. Don't use that word. So now, in closing out this video, while I try to catch another fish, something I've been meaning to mention in the other videos, but I haven't mentioned yet, is that what I'm providing to you, what I'm giving you, are suggestions based on my own experience. I'm not giving you rules for crosswalking. I hope that there are some things that I offer that if you decide to start crosswalking, or if you're crosswalking now, that you'll be able to employ in your own ministry. But I want to encourage you to be you out there and not try to be me. And I'm not going to try to be you. Engage in evangelism, however you do it, crosswalking or some other way, according to the personality God has given you and in the context of life where He's placed you. Don't try to parrot what I'm doing. And most certainly, don't take my suggestions in these videos based on my experience and what works for me and what doesn't work for me as some kind of crosswalking law. It most certainly is not that. These are suggestions. These are things that I hope you will find useful, that I hope you will find helpful, and that they will help you to do as well as you possibly can while out there on a street corner in your community holding a cross. All right. I'm going to focus now on trying to catch some scaly fish. Hope you all have a great day. I hope the video has been encouraging to you. And until next time, God bless you.